Admiral Yuna Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Olive Branch and watched the Conclave station grow larger in the viewport. It was beautiful. Towers of crystal and light. Ships from 100 worlds docked along its arms like birds on a wire. Her ship was not beautiful. The Olive Branch had been a cargo hauler 6 months ago. They had welded guns to its hull, painted it white for peace, called it humanity's flagship because it was the best they had. Chen knew what it looked like, a child's toy floating toward a palace. But they had come anyway. "Admiral," her communications officer said, "the Conclave is hailing us. They're assigning us a docking port." "Which one?" The officer paused, checked the data twice. "Service level, below the maintenance bays, where they put the garbage ships." Chen kept her face still. "Acknowledged. Take us in." They understood. The Conclave chamber was vast. Chen had seen pictures, but pictures were lies. The real thing made her feel like an insect. 12 species sat in their designated sections. The Vethkai, with their silver skin and 4 eyes. The Kethmari, tall and thin as dead trees. The Solari, who glowed faintly in the dim light. Others she had only read about in intercepted transmissions. Thousands of delegates filled the gallery above, watching, waiting. Chen walked to the petitioner's platform. It was low, lower than everyone else. She had to look up to address them. This was intentional. "Honored members of the Conclave," she began. "Humanity comes in peace. We seek only. You seek survival." The voice came from the Vethkai section. Their speaker rose. 4 eyes looked down at Chen with something she recognized. She had seen it before. In old photographs from her grandmother's stories. Contempt. "We have studied your species," the speaker continued. He did not address Chen. He addressed the room, as if she was not worth speaking to directly. "Fascinating, in a primitive way. They still burn dead carbon for fuel. They poison their own atmosphere. They have not even unified their single planet. It started in the Vethkai section and spread. The Kethmari made a clicking sound that served the same purpose. The Solari flickered brighter. Thousands of beings, laughing. Chen's hands formed fists at her sides. She forced them open. "We are aware of our limitations," she said. Her voice did not shake. She would not let it shake. "That is why we come to you. To learn, to trade, to beg." The speaker smiled. At least his mouth moved in a way that suggested a smile. "Humanity may join the Conclave. We are not without mercy." The laughter died down. "As a protectorate species, under Vethkai guidance, of course." Chen's translator implant fed her the legal meaning of protectorate. Resource extraction rights granted to guardian species. Breeding quotas subject to Conclave approval. All technology development supervised and surrendered upon request. Slavery, with better vocabulary. "The terms are non-negotiable," the speaker added. "You have 1 solar cycle to accept. If you refuse," he gestured at the viewport behind him, "the stars beyond. The universe is large, and very cold, and very empty for species that stand alone." Chen looked at the datapad a Conclave aide offered her. The full terms, thousands of pages. She thought about her grandmother, the stories she told about Nanjing, about what happens when you are seen as less than human. These beings did not see her as human at all. She took the datapad. She said nothing. She turned and walked out. Behind her, the laughter resumed. The Olive Branch undocked in silence. Chen stood at the viewport and watched the Conclave station shrink. Its beautiful towers, its elegant ships. "Admiral," her communications officer again, voice tight. They're broadcasting our departure on all public frequencies." Chen turned. Show me. The main screen flickered to life. A Conclave newsfeed. Commentary in 12 languages, her translator working overtime. Primitive species departing after failing to meet basic civilizational standards. Amusing that they thought they could negotiate as equals. Perhaps in a few thousand years, if they survive. And under it all, like music, the sound of laughter. The Conclave had recorded it. They were broadcasting it across the galaxy. A joke. Humanity was a joke. Her first officer approached. Commander Wei, young, angry. Admiral, we can't just... We can. Chen's voice was quiet. And we will. They humiliated us, on purpose. They wanted us to react. Yes. So we just leave? We accept this? Chen looked at him. Really looked. He was 32 years old. He had never known a world without hope for the stars. He had grown up believing humanity would find its place among them. That hope was dead now. Commander, she said, what do you think our options are? He opened his mouth, closed it. We have one ship, Chen continued. They have thousands. We have chemical rockets and fusion prototypes. They fold space like paper. If we fight now, we die. All of us. Everyone on Earth, everyone on Mars, everyone in the asteroid colonies. Gone. Forgotten. A footnote about the stupid apes who tried. Wei's jaw tightened. So we do nothing? No. Chen turned back to the viewport. We remember. She watched the Conclave station become a point of light. Then nothing. Set course for Earth, she ordered. Maximum speed. The olive branch jumped to faster than light. Behind it, the laughter continued to echo through subspace. The Conclave had made a joke. They did not understand that jokes have punchlines. They would learn. On Earth, the broadcasts played on every screen. Leaders watched in silence. Citizens watched in anger. Children watched without understanding why their parents were crying. Admiral Chen's shuttle touched down in Geneva 3 days later. She walked into the United Nations building. The old flag still hung there, though they meant less now than they ever had. Every nation had sent representatives. Every enemy. For the first time in human history, they were all in the same room. Looking at the same screen. Feeling the same thing. Chen stood at the podium. She was tired. She had not slept since leaving the Conclave. They think we are vermin, she said. Amusing vermin. They have given us a choice. Slavery or extinction. Silence. I propose a third option. She pressed a button. The screen behind her changed. Schematics, designs, plans that human engineers had drawn in secret, hoping they would never be needed. Ships, big ships, warships. We have 1 generation, Chen said, maybe 2, before they come for us anyway, before they decide vermin should be exterminated rather than laughed at. She looked at the faces before her. Americans, Russians, Chinese, Europeans, Africans, all the old enemies. We can keep fighting each other. Or, we can give our children something we never had. She let the word hang. Vengeance. No one laughed. No one would laugh again for a very long time. 40 years was nothing to the Conclave. The Vethkai lived for centuries. The Solari measured time in stellar cycles. Even the short-lived Kethmari considered a human lifespan barely enough to reach adulthood. So when humanity went quiet, no one noticed. The quarantine zone they established around their little solar system was seen as embarrassment. A primitive species hiding from the galaxy, licking their wounds, probably collapsing into civil war, as primitive species always did. The Conclave sent a probe after 20 years, just to check. The probe detected heavy industrial activity on several moons, unusual energy signatures, lots of movement. The Conclave analyst who reviewed the data noted it in his report. Humans appear to be constructing infrastructure, possibly trying to rebuild after internal conflicts. No threat detected. He filed the report. No one read it. Why would they? The punchline had already landed, hadn't it? Marcus Cole was born on Titan, in the shadow of Shipyard 7. He never knew a sky without scaffolding, never knew a world where the entire species wasn't building something. His mother worked 16-hour shifts on hull assembly. His father died in a welding accident when Marcus was 9. No one called it an accident. They called it the cost. Everyone paid the cost. Everyone. By the time Marcus was old enough to understand, there were 47 Prometheus-class dreadnoughts in various stages of completion. Each one was 3 kilometers long. Each one carried weapons that human scientists had invented, tested, and perfected in secret. Each one had a name painted on its hull, names from human history, names of battles, names of massacres, names of moments when humanity had learned what it meant to be the weak one. He was 26 years old and had never seen an alien in person. Just pictures, training videos, the faces he was supposed to hate. He wasn't sure if he hated them. He had never met them. But he would kill them if ordered. Everyone would. That was what 40 years of preparation did to a species. Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka shared Marcus's bunk rotation. She was quiet, efficient, the kind of officer who never made mistakes, because mistakes meant delays, and delays meant the mission took longer. The mission, everyone talked about it like a religion. The day they would finally leave. The day they would show the galaxy what humanity had become. Tanaka never talked about it. She kept a small glass jar on her shelf. Inside was soil, dark brown, almost black. She polished it every night before sleep. Never explained what it was. Marcus asked once. Earth, she said, a beach in Japan, my grandmother's hometown. Is it still there? The beach? Tanaka's hands stopped moving. No, the sea took it. 20 years ago. She put the jar back on the shelf. Polishing done. Subject closed. Marcus understood. Everyone on the fleet had something like that jar. A piece of what they were fighting for. A piece of what had been lost while humanity built its vengeance instead of saving itself. Earth was dying. Everyone knew it. The climate had passed the point of no return decades ago. Coastlines swallowed. Croplands turned to dust. Billions relocated to orbital habitats and lunar colonies. They could have fixed it, maybe, if they had spent 40 years healing instead of building. But healing didn't stop the Conclave. Healing didn't answer the laughter. So they built ships, and they let Earth die. And they put the soil in jars, so they wouldn't forget what it had cost. Admiral Chen addressed the Fleet Academy graduating class on Marcus's 27th birthday. She was old now, 90 years. Most of it held together by medical technology that would have seemed like magic to her grandmother. But her eyes were the same. Sharp, cold, focused. Marcus stood in formation with 1,000 other graduates. New officers for the new fleet. Ready to crew the ships that would carry humanity back to the stars. Chen walked to the podium. She did not use notes. She never used notes. You were not born when they laughed at us, she began. You did not see their faces, did not hear the sound, but you know it. You have grown up with it. It was the first thing your parents taught you. Silence. 1,000 young officers, breathing. They taught us what we were to them. Vermin. Amusing vermin. Entertainment for an afternoon. Her voice did not rise, did not fall. Level as a blade. Your parents built these ships. Your grandparents designed them. Some of you lost family in the construction, in the testing, in the accidents that weren't accidents, just the price we paid. Marcus thought of his father, the welding accident. I will not ask you if you are ready. Ready is a word for species who have choices. We do not have choices. We have only the mission. Chen paused. Let the silence fill the room. We will not ask again. We will not negotiate. When we return, They will understand what they created. She raised her hand, the Academy salute. Not a salute from any Earth nation, a new one, created for this purpose. A fist over the heart, then opened toward the stars. We remember. We return. 1,000 officers saluted back. The fleet assembled in the shadow of Jupiter. 200 dreadnoughts. Thousands of support vessels, troop carriers, medical ships, supply chains that stretched back to the asteroid mines. Marcus stood at his station, on the reckoning. Weapons systems. His job was to fire when ordered. Nothing else. Around him, the bridge crew worked in silence. Final checks, system confirmations. 40 years of preparation coming down to this moment. Captain Reyes entered the bridge. A small woman with gray hair and steady hands. She had been in the first graduating class after the Conclave broadcast. 50 years old. She had been waiting her entire adult life. All stations report ready, the first officer announced. Reyes nodded. Open fleet channel. The main screen flickered. Admiral Chen's face appeared. She was on the UES Never Forget, the fleet's flagship, the first dreadnought completed, the oldest and most powerful. All ships, Chen said. This is Admiral Chen. For 40 years, we have been silent. For 40 years, the galaxy has forgotten us. Today, we remind them. Marcus felt his heart beating, steady, calm. There will be no mercy for those who laughed. There will be no negotiation. There will be only the answer to a question they asked 40 years ago, Marcus said. Chen's face was stone. They asked what humanity was worth. Today, we show them. The channel closed. Captain Reyes stood at the center of the bridge. Navigation, set course for Vethkai space. Weapons, charge all batteries. Marcus's hands moved over his console. The ship hummed beneath him. Power flowing to systems designed to kill. Course set, navigation reported. Weapons charged, Marcus said. His voice did not shake. Reyes took her seat. All ships, engage. 200 dreadnoughts jumped to faster than light. In a blink, they were gone. Behind them, the shipyards continued their work. There were always more ships to build. There was always more vengeance to prepare. Commander Kethra had served on Thessax 7 for 12 years. A border world, a quiet posting. Nothing ever happened here. That changed at 0347 local time, when his sensor officer made a sound Kethra had never heard before. Fear. Commander, ships incoming, many ships. Kethra walked to the sensor station. The screen was full of red dots, more appearing every second. How many? The officer's hands trembled over the controls. I cannot count them. 200. No, more, still arriving. Configuration? Unknown. Kethra's 4 eyes narrowed. Unknown was not possible. Every spacefaring species in the galaxy was catalogued. Every ship design recorded. The Conclave had spent millennia collecting this data. Check again. The officer checked again. Commander, the configuration matches nothing in our database. But, he paused, swallowed. There is a partial match. Very old records. Pre-Conclave contact files. Show me. The screen flickered. Old data. Grainy images from 40 years ago. A cargo hauler with guns welded to its hull. Primitive. Pathetic. A joke. Kethra stared at the new images. The ships approaching his world. They were not cargo haulers. They were 3 kilometers long, bristling with weapons, moving in perfect formation. The same basic design. Evolved. Perfected. Terrifying. Human, Kethra whispered. Unidentified vessels, you are entering Conclave space. Identify yourselves or be fired upon. Kethra's voice was steady. Training. Years of training. No response. I repeat, identify yourselves immediately. This is your final warning. Silence. The fleet kept coming. Then, static. A human voice, calm as mathematics. We remember. The channel closed. Kethra stood very still. Around him his bridge crew looked at him, waiting for orders, waiting for him to tell them everything would be fine. He opened the fleet channel. Thessax 7 had 18 ships, patrol vessels, enough to handle pirates, maybe a small raiding party. Not enough for this, not nearly enough. All ships, this is Commander Kethra. Battle stations, target the lead vessels, prepare to engage. His tactical officer looked up. Commander, we count 212 capital ships, plus support vessels. We cannot. I know. Kethra sat in his command chair. We cannot win, but we can warn the homeworld. We can buy time for evacuation. We can die with honor. He activated the distress beacon. Maximum power. Every Conclave world would hear it. All ships, engage. Marcus watched the Vethkai fleet on his screen. 18 ships, small ones, moving toward the human formation like fish attacking a whale. Awaiting orders. Captain Reyes studied the tactical display. They're hailing the civilian stations, ordering evacuation. Confirmed, communications said. Civilian transports are departing the planet. They're heading for the outer system. Reyes nodded. Let them go. Our targets are military only. Marcus felt something loosen in his chest. He didn't know what he had expected. Didn't know if he could have followed orders to fire on civilians. The relief told him he wasn't sure. Enemy fleet in weapons range, Tactical announced. All ships, Reyes said. Fire. Marcus pressed the button. The battle lasted 4 minutes. The Vethkai fought. They fought hard, and they fought brave, and it made no difference at all. Human weapons had been designed in secret, tested in hidden facilities in the asteroid belt, perfected over 4 decades by engineers who knew they were building death itself. The Vethkai shields, which had stopped every weapon the galaxy could throw at them, failed in seconds. Their hulls, designed to survive asteroid impacts, melted under focused particle beams. 18 ships became debris. Commander Kethra's final transmission was a single word in his native language. Impossible. Then silence. The civilian transports reached the outer system and jumped to FTL. They would warn the Conclave. They would tell everyone what had happened. That was intentional. Ground targets confirmed, Tactical reported. Military installations, shipyards, defense platforms. Fire, Reyes ordered. The Dreadnoughts turned their weapons on the planet. Not the cities, not the farms, not the places where families lived. Only the military targets. It took an hour to destroy everything the Vethkai had built on Thessax 7. 40 years of construction. Orbital platforms, ground bases, weapons depots, all gone. When it was over, Marcus sat back from his station. His hands were steady. His heart was not. He had just killed people, real people. They had families, children, lives. They had also laughed. 40 years ago, their species had laughed at humanity and called them vermin. Did that justify this? Marcus didn't know. He wasn't sure he wanted to know. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the fleet channel. All ships, this phase is complete. Civilian evacuation was successful. No non-combatants were harmed. Marcus breathed out. But the mission is not finished. The Conclave has 11 more species, 11 more members who laughed, 11 more answers to deliver. Chen's eyes were cold. The same eyes that had watched the Conclave broadcast 40 years ago. Set course for Vethkai Prime. We're going to their homeworld. And then we're going to the Conclave. The channel closed. Captain Reyes stood. You heard the Admiral. Navigation. Best speed to Vethkai Prime. Yes, Captain. The fleet moved. Lieutenant Tanaka found Marcus in the observation lounge after his shift. He was staring at the stars. The debris field of Thessax 7 was far behind them now. She sat next to him, said nothing. They evacuated the civilians, Marcus said finally. Yes. So we're not monsters. Tanaka considered this. We could have been. The orders allowed for it. Military targets only. But accidents happen. No one would have questioned it. But we didn't. No, we didn't. Marcus turned to look at her. Does that make it okay? What we did. Tanaka pulled out her jar. The soil from the beach that didn't exist anymore. She held it up to the starlight. My grandmother was 10 years old when the water took her village. She watched her house disappear. Her school, the shrine where her parents were married. She turned the jar slowly. She could have spent her life hating the ocean, but she didn't. She moved inland, built a new life, taught my mother to look forward, not back. So nothing. Tanaka put the jar away. I'm not my grandmother. I can't forgive the ocean. I can't forgive the Conclave. I don't know if what we're doing is right. She stood. But I know it's necessary, and I know we're trying to do it without becoming monsters. Maybe that's enough. She left. Marcus stayed at the viewport for a long time. The message broadcast on all frequencies as the fleet left the system. Every ship in the galaxy would receive it. Admiral Chen's voice, clear, cold, final. To the Conclave of 12. 40 years ago, you gave us a choice, slavery or extinction. We have chosen neither. Pause. Thessax 7 was the first answer. 1 down, 11 to go. Pause. We will see you at the Conclave. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, species that had laughed 40 years ago stopped laughing. They were starting to understand. The joke was over. The punchline was coming. The Conclave chamber was chaos. The HFY speaker stood at his podium, 4 eyes wild. We demand unified response. The humans have attacked sovereign territory. This is an act of war against all of us. The Kethmari delegate rose. An act of war you invited, 40 years ago. That was diplomacy. That was humiliation. The Kethmari's voice clicked with contempt. You mocked them, broadcast their shame across the galaxy, made them a joke. They were primitives. They were primitives. The delegate gestured at the reports floating on every screen. 200 capital ships. Technology the Conclave had never seen. They are not primitives now. The Solari representative flickered. We declare neutrality. This is a HFY problem. You created it. You solve it. 3 more species signaled agreement. Self-preservation. The Conclave, which had laughed together 40 years ago, could not even agree on how to die. Verath Prime was a fortress world. 800 ships. The combined fleet of 6 species who had chosen to fight. The HFY. The Kethmari, who hated the HFY, but hated extinction more. The Dren, the Vasic, the Morath, the Telos. 800 ships against 200. They should have won. Marcus watched the enemy fleet on his screen. More ships than he had ever seen. Arranged in a formation that human intelligence had identified years ago. The Wall of Stars. A defensive pattern designed to create overlapping fields of fire. Impressive, Captain Reyes said. Yes, Captain. Do you know why it won't work? Marcus did. Every officer in the fleet did. Because we designed our weapons specifically to break it. Correct. Reyes sat in her command chair. 40 years. They laughed and forgot about us. We studied every transmission we could intercept, every tactical manual, every battle record. We built our weapons to kill their ships specifically. She smiled. It was not a kind smile. They're fighting the enemy they laughed at. We're fighting the enemy we've been dreaming about for 2 generations. All ships in position, Tactical reported. All weapons, fire at will. The Battle of Verath Prime lasted 6 hours. The Conclave fleet fought with courage. They adapted. They improvised. They did everything right. It didn't matter. Human ships moved through their formation like wolves through sheep. The Wall of Stars broke within the first hour. After that, it was slaughter. Marcus fired until his weapons overheated, switched to secondary batteries, fired again. Around him, the bridge crew worked in silence. Focused. No one celebrated. By the time it was over, 600 Conclave ships were debris. The rest retreated, scattered, broken. Humanity lost 37 ships, 12,000 people. The cost. The boarding operations began immediately. Disabled Conclave vessels, survivors to be rescued, prisoners to be taken. Marcus led a squad onto a HFY cruiser. The ship was dark, emergency lighting only, atmosphere holding. Spread out, he ordered. Search for survivors. Remember your training. Non-lethal unless engaged first. His squad moved through the corridors, finding bodies, finding wounded, calling medical teams. Marcus reached the cargo bay alone. He heard the sound before he saw the source. Soft, frightened, a child's whimper. He raised his weapon, moved forward. The HFY child was hiding behind a storage container, maybe 8 years old by their species standards. Small, silver-skinned. 4 eyes wide with terror. Marcus lowered his weapon. "It's okay," he said. His translator would convert the words. "I'm not going to hurt you." The child stared at him. The terror faded. Something else replaced it. Contempt. The same look Commander Kethra had given the human ships before he died. The same look the Conclave had given Admiral Chen 40 years ago. Bred into them. Taught from birth. Humans were vermin. Even now, even after everything. The child spat at him. Marcus stood very still. He could feel the anger. 40 years of anger. His father's death, his mother's sacrifice, everyone who had given everything so humanity could be here, in this moment, with power over the people who had despised them. The child spat at him, and Marcus laughed. He laughed because it was absurd. Because they had come so far, and built so much, and killed so many, and this child still looked at him like he was nothing. He laughed because he didn't know what else to do. Then he knelt down, pulled a ration bar from his vest, held it out. The child didn't take it. Marcus put it on the ground, stood, picked up the child, gently, carefully, the way his mother had picked him up when he was small, and carried them to the shuttle. The child did not stop glaring the entire time. Tanaka's jar was broken. Marcus found her sitting on the deck of their shared quarters, glass fragments around her, soil scattered across the metal floor. Shrapnel, during the battle, a near miss that had shaken the ship. She wasn't crying, wasn't moving, just staring at the soil. Marcus sat down next to her. "I'm sorry," he said. "It's just dirt." "No, it's not." Tanaka's hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against the deck. "My grandmother's village, my mother's stories, the only piece of earth I had." She touched the soil, rubbed it between her fingers. "We're fighting for this, for dirt, for memory, for the idea that it mattered." "It does matter." "Does it?" She looked at him. Her eyes were red but dry. "I'll killed people today. A lot of people. I didn't feel anything. Just nothing. Like pressing a button." Marcus thought about the child, the contempt, the ration bar left on the ground. "I felt something," he said. "What?" "I don't know. Something that made me laugh when I should have been angry." Tanaka stared at him for a long moment. "That might be worse," she said finally. "Yeah, maybe." They sat in silence, the soil on the deck, the stars outside. The fleet moving toward the Conclave homeworld. Admiral Chen reviewed the battle reports on the bridge of the Never Forget. 92 years old, strapped to her command chair because her body couldn't support itself anymore. Medical systems pumping drugs into her blood to keep her heart beating. She had promised herself she would live to see this. She had kept that promise. "All ships report ready, Admiral," her first officer said. "The Conclave?" "No response to our hails. But they're not running. They're waiting. Chen nodded. She had expected that. The remaining Conclave species had nowhere to go. This was their capital. Their last stand. Open a channel. All frequencies. Channel open. Chen looked at the view screen. The Conclave station. The same station where she had stood 40 years ago. Where they had laughed at her. This is Admiral Yuna Chen of the United Earth Fleet. We have come to renegotiate. She let the words hang. You have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally. If you refuse, she paused. Thought about her grandmother. About Nanjing. About what happens when you become the monster to defeat the monster. We will discuss terms in person. The channel closed. Her first officer looked at her. Admiral, aren't we going to destroy them? Shen smiled. It was not a kind smile, but it was not a cruel one either. We'll see. Let's find out if they've learned anything in 40 years. The fleet held position. 1 hour. 40 years of vengeance. And it came down to 1 hour. Chen closed her eyes. She was so tired. The surrender came in 43 minutes. Total. Unconditional. The Conclave offered everything. Seats on the council. Full voting rights. Reparations. Technology. Territory. Whatever humanity wanted. Admiral Chen listened to the terms in silence. Her command staff watched her, waiting. The bridge of the Never Forget was quiet enough to hear breathing. When the transmission ended, Chen did not respond immediately. She sat in her chair, stared at the view screen. The Conclave station hung there, beautiful and fragile. Admiral, her first officer, your orders? Chen raised one hand. Silence. She thought about the past 40 years, the shipyards, the sacrifices, the millions who had worked themselves to death building this fleet. The Earth they had let die because vengeance was more important than survival. She thought about what came next. Assemble the command council, she said finally. All senior officers. We need to discuss this. The debate lasted 3 hours. Captain Reyes spoke first. We should accept. The mission is complete. We came to force them to negotiate as equals. They're offering more than that. We won. A murmur of agreement. Captain Morrison of the UES Retribution stood. We won? We lost 12,000 people in the last battle alone. We lost Earth. We lost 40 years of development that could have saved our homeworld. And now we just accept their apology? It's not an apology, Reyes said. It's surrender. It's words. Morrison's voice was hard. Words from the same species that called us vermin, that laughed while we begged for help. Words are nothing. We should dismantle the Conclave entirely, burn their worlds, make sure no one ever laughs at humanity again. Silence. Marcus stood. He was the youngest officer in the room. No one expected him to speak. Permission to address the council. Admiral Chen nodded. Marcus took a breath. I boarded a Vethkai cruiser after the battle. I found a child hiding in the cargo bay. He paused. Let them see the image. The child looked at me with contempt. The same contempt they showed Admiral Chen 40 years ago. Bred into them. Part of their culture. Even after we destroyed their fleet, this child still believed I was vermin. Morrison nodded. Exactly. They'll never change. We should. I gave the child a ration bar. Morrison stopped. I picked them up and carried them to the shuttle. Because that's who I want to be. That's who I want humanity to be. Marcus looked around the room. Old officers, young officers, all of them carrying 40 years of rage. If we destroy them, what's left? What do we become? We built this fleet to prove we weren't what they said we were. If we use it to commit genocide, we prove them right. Morrison's face twisted. They were right to fear us. Maybe. Marcus met his eyes. But fear isn't respect, and respect is what we came for. Admiral Chen raised her hand. The debate stopped. She looked older than her 92 years. tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix. They asked us what we wanted, she said. 40 years ago, standing in that chamber, looking up at their faces. She pressed a button. The main screen flickered. The original Conclave broadcast. The laughter. The contempt. I've listened to this every day since. Every single day. Before breakfast, before sleep. I never let myself forget. The recording played. Chen watched it with dead eyes. I built this fleet to answer that question. What does humanity want? What are we worth? I thought the answer was making them pay. The recording ended. I was wrong. Murmuring. Shock. Vengeance isn't an answer. It's a question. And the question is, what do you do after? When everyone who hurt you is dead or broken, what then? Do you find new enemies? Do you burn until nothing is left? She looked at Marcus. Or do you stop and build something better? Chen turned to her first officer. We accept the surrender, with modifications. The terms were simple. Full membership in the Conclave, equal voting rights, reparations for the resources used to build the fleet. And one more thing. Every homeworld, every capital, every place where the Conclave's power was centered. A monument. Simple stone. 3 words carved in every language in the galaxy. We were wrong. The Vethkai speaker received the terms. His 4 eyes moved over the text. Acceptable, he said slowly. But the monuments, they are unnecessary humiliation. Our surrender is already, not humiliation. Chen's voice was soft. Education. I don't understand. You will. Chen smiled. Not a kind smile, but not a cruel one. Every child who grows up in the Conclave will see those words. They'll ask what they mean, and their parents will have to explain. She leaned forward. You laughed at us once. You taught your children to laugh at us. Now you'll teach them something else. The speaker stared at her for a long moment. You could have destroyed us, he said finally. Yes. Why didn't you? Chen thought about the question, about 40 years of rage, about the fleet she had built, and the Earth she had sacrificed, and the millions who had died for this moment. Because that's not who we want to be. 50 years later, Marcus Cole walked through the streets of Vethkai Prime. He was old now, gray hair, tired bones, ambassador to the Conclave for 20 years. The monument stood in the central plaza, simple stone, 3 words. We were wrong. A Vethkai child stood in front of it, young, maybe 8 years old, the same age as the child Marcus had found on that cruiser so long ago. The child tugged on their parent's arm. What does it mean? The parent hesitated, looked at Marcus. Recognition flickered in their 4 eyes. They knew who he was. Everyone knew who he was. Marcus smiled, tipped his hat, kept walking. Behind him, the parent began to explain. The words were soft, the beginning of a lesson that would take generations to complete. Marcus found a bench in a quiet garden, sat down, watched the sun set over the alien city. His communicator buzzed. A message from Earth, from the Reclamation Project. The oceans were healing, slowly. 100 years of damage couldn't be undone in 50. But they were healing. Lieutenant Tanaka, Admiral Tanaka now retired, had sent a picture. A beach in Japan. Water lapping at new sand. The beach her grandmother had lost, rebuilt, restored. A message attached. We finally did it. Thought you should know. Marcus looked at the picture for a long time. He thought about the jar of soil, scattered on a starship deck 50 years ago, gone forever. He thought about what Tanaka had said that night, fighting for dirt, for memory, for the idea that it mattered. It mattered. All of it mattered. The galaxy didn't laugh at humanity anymore. Some species feared them. Some respected them. Some were still learning what those 3 words meant. We were wrong. Wrong to laugh. Wrong to dismiss. Wrong to assume that primitive meant powerless. But humanity had been wrong too. Wrong to think vengeance was the answer. Wrong to sacrifice so much for rage. They had almost become monsters. Almost proved the Conclave right. But they stopped. At the edge of the abyss, they stopped. That was the real victory. Not the dreadnoughts. Not the battles. Not the monuments. The victory was in choosing who to become when they finally had power over the people who had hurt them. The universe had laughed at humanity once. Now humanity laughed at itself, at its mistakes, at its rage. At the 40 years it had spent building death when it could have been building life. But it was a gentle laugh. A wise laugh. The laugh of a species that had learned something important. Power wasn't the ability to destroy. Power was the ability to choose. And humanity had chosen well. The sun set over Vethkai Prime. The monument cast a long shadow. 3 words, carved in stone. A reminder and a promise. We were wrong. Marcus closed his eyes. Let the alien breeze wash over him. For the first time in 50 years, he felt at peace. The punchline had landed. And it was better than vengeance. It was hope.